To Anthony Longo, one word matters more than most, and that word is VOGLIA. In Italian, it means a wish, a desire, or a craving. VOGLIA, I would argue, is what drives passion and purpose when profit doesn't blind or dictate a different ambition. And who's Anthony Longo? He's the CEO of Longo's, one of the most exciting food retailers I've ever visited. And everywhere I travel, I always check in at the local grocery stores. Longo's tagline is fresh tradition, and it reflects more than just their passion for fresh fruits and vegetables and food. It's a tradition that comes from a family business. Today's podcast, Anthony will talk about the values that lights his family and his business, and how they pass this torch to new generations. We'll talk about why and how culture can combat complexities. Then we spend some time talking about food and what it means to all of us, and what Anthony hopes to see happen across the entire supply chain, from farm to plate. Some incredible insights and ideas from the incredible Anthony Longo. Hi, it's Tony Chapman, host of Chatter That Matters, presented by RBC. This is a platform where we tell the stories of heroes, everyday Canadians who do extraordinary things, and small business owners who find a way to survive. These are true stories, real journeys, and as you watch and listen, you'll see characters develop, experiences experienced. You'll celebrate their triumphs and feel their tragedies, and together we'll uncover some important lessons in life. And RBC, their only ask is to make this show about the people and not them. I've worked with brands my entire career, and I can tell you, and this has nothing to do with dollars and everything to do with people, that I've never been more impressed with a brand than I am with RBC. They have an incredible culture with depth and dedication. They give back. They use their size and profitability to promote diversity, community, athletics, and environment. And they're spending over $500 million to support youth over the next 10 years. All of this is needed at times when life can feel like a pinball, where we bounce from one day feeling secure to insecure, and certain to uncertain, and possibilities to impossibilities. By sharing the stories and insights and ideas of people like Anthony Longo, we hope to inspire and motivate and help you get to where you need and deserve to go. And Anthony's story begins with his grandfather, who lived one day after Anthony was born, but left a legacy rich in emotional wealth. Anthony, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So I want to spend some time on the hero's journey your grandfather Antonio Longo made in the early 50s. And what he did for his sons as a gift was to, give them a better life. And then I want to talk about what you're doing today to build upon his legacy. And then I'd love to talk about food in terms of what it means to us individually and to Canada economically. A tall order in a short podcast, but we'll begin by saying, let's go back to the early 1950s. Your grandfather, Antonio Longo, arrives in Toronto from Italy, finds a job in a metal foundry. In the book I read, your family described it as working long hours, lungs scarred from the heat, arms from the flames, and his three sons pleading with him to find another line of work. And he said, the only time I will quit is when you boys have a business of your own. Anthony, what happens next?
So the way it happened is, there was six siblings, four boys and two girls, and Dad was working for one of the grocery chains at the time. And after a negative encounter with his supervisor, I'll say, and there's a great story around that. He decided that it was time to start his own business. So he's the oldest of six, and he started his own store at the ripe old age of 22. And then his brother Joe joined him, shortly thereafter, and then their youngest brother Gus joined them as well a few years later.
So what did the grandfather think of his wish coming true that start a business and I'll quit?
Yeah, he was true to his word. He quit the foundry and he did join his sons in the business. And we have some great pictures actually of my grandfather working in the store in many of our stores that are up there, kind of really talking about the history of our business. So he was. I wasn't around then. I was born in '61, and unfortunately, my grandfather passed away in '61, the day after I was born. But yeah, he was very proud, of course, of his kids to start their own business, the entrepreneurship that they had.
So what values have passed from a grandfather that you never met that have been instilled into you and your business?
Yeah, I think we talk about values a lot in our business, and we really kind of centered on three for a long time, and that was honesty, trustworthiness, and mutual respect. And then about 2 years ago, we added another one that really represented our family, and that's Voglia. And Voglia is the Italian word for desire, for passion, for getting things done. So that's really the values that we were raised with. And of course, hard work and putting in an honest day's work, sometimes more than an honest day's work, just the hours that were put in, that my dad and my uncles showed every day. And then the other thing I'd say is, when it comes to our culture, and this is our family too, not just the company culture. It's We call it treating you like family. That's how we describe our culture. And that means whether it's your customers or your team members or your vendors, it's about treating you like family.
So your grandfather working at a foundry, you're starting a grocery business, the siblings in their 20s. It wasn't a lot of money then, but as the torch passes between generations and the riches of a successful business abound, how do you maintain those values? Because those values are the values of immigrants that do whatever they can to survive. How does that stay alive in a business where I'm sure you could write a check for almost anything?
Yeah, I'd say it's a great question. I think you have to live your values every day. I mean, that's really how you pass them on. It's in the actions that you take and the things that are important to you and how you represent those. So, if material things are important to you, then that's going to be the values that are going to be passed on from generation to generation. But in our case, for us, the most important value is family, family and friends, and that's what gets passed on. That's what we celebrate and cherish, every day. And I know it sounds trite, but it's true. If you don't live those values every day, then how will your kids, grandkids, ever pick them up? For sure.
I've seen you walk many conference halls with your brothers, and the way you look at each other, you certainly are an incredibly knitted family. What are the things that you really set as your signature for Longos? And I would say before many, I mean, I think back in the days where groceries about meat and protein was fresh. Why did you choose fresh? And how are you maintaining that, knowing that so many other competitors are trying to copy that in terms of the perimeter of the store and making it look almost like a living garden?
Yeah, so for us, we started in the fruit and vegetable business. I mean, my father and his father, they were farmers in Sicily, and so produce was in their blood. And then when Dad came to Canada first, I guess it was 1947, 1950, he worked for his uncle who had a fruit market, actually on the beaches, in the beaches. Is it beaches now or beach? But it's in the eastern part of Toronto, and he ended up being in that business. And then he went to work for a chain in the produce department. So fresh has been the mainstay of our business for since 1956.
So you're building out this incredible fresh franchise. But then years ago, again ahead of your time, you jump into the e-commerce business with Grocery Gateway. What I struggle with sometimes is how does a family that merchandises produce, the color, the smell, the majesty. I mean, I walk into a Longo's. I might walk in for looking for one thing and I come out with $100 worth of freshness. How do you, the juxtaposition between the merchandise of the sensory of fresh with the sense of selling everything over a screen or mobile phone?
Yeah, it comes over to trust and how people view us. So we build trusting relationships with our guests, and they really trust the shoppers at Grocery Gateway. And it takes a while. It takes a number of orders for people to actually see what it is they gather. And then the other thing I'd say is, the face of our company is our driver, is our customer service rep, and they're all hardworking, terrific guys and girls that take care of customers, and they bring the product to the customer's door, and sometimes inside, not during COVID, of course, but normally inside the door, etc. So it's about trust, and our brand, I think, has been built on trust over many years.
So you mentioned COVID. Let's spend a little bit of time on COVID because really grocery became an essential service. And when I read about Anthony Longo, I read about you and your brothers, instead of being in the trappings of head office, in the stores, bagging groceries, stocking shelves. Was this real or just a PR move to get a good article?
No, that's real. That's what we did pre-COVID. That's what we did during COVID, and that's what we're going to do after COVID. It's who we are. I mean, I love being in the stores. I love interacting with our team, and we think it's important to show up and just be able to talk to our team about what are the things we're doing right, what are the things we could do better, and during COVID, it was about thanking them for coming in every day, and so that was not a PR stunt. That's just who we are.
So, a culture built on trust obviously was put to the test with COVID because I'm also having and trusting my life, my safety, coming to work. What did you learn about your culture and your people?
We really learned that they're so resilient and committed. These are great, caring people. We also learned that they have lots of VOGLIA, first of all, so lots of desire, but also they were able to be agile and change on the fly. So we had people working in, maybe they were in our cooking school, and they, because cooking schools are closed, they ended up working in grocery or working in bakery or whatever. So lots of cross training was going on, and no one said, "Oh, I only work in the cooking school, so I'm not coming to work." No, they came to work and they said, "Hey, how do I help?" So I was just so proud of them.
How do you feel once COVID is passed, and we all are hoping for that? What will change in terms of the way we lead and lead cultures going forward?
Well, I think culture is really built on the actions that you take and the decisions that you make. So I don't think it changes too much, other than I think more transparency and openness with your teams is going to be really critical, and being able to be agile and faster at things. So in the past we might have taken more time to study something, and we've learned through COVID that you actually don't need to. I mean, yes, you have to take time, but not as much time as we did in the past. So let people go, let them try things, and if they fail, fine. What do we learn from it, and move on to the next thing.
So, Anthony, I now want to shift in terms of food, which is something I know you're very passionate about, why it means the world to the consumer, and why this sector is of vital importance to Canada. First of all, I just want to get what are the changing tastes of the consumer in Canada, and what are the reasons behind it?
Yeah, we've seen a few trends that have really come to life in the last few years. Health and wellness has been a big one. Local, for a number of years, has really come to the top as well. And environmental, I think, for a small but growing number of consumers, has become really important in terms of where their food comes from and how it's produced, has been critical. And then the last thing I'd say is convenience, which again is very critical for consumers.
And in our pre-interview, you one of the things that you brought up was whether the health of Canadians compared to some other places in the world can be directly correlated to what we eat. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. A number of years ago, I did a talk for the Food Manufacturers Association, and what I zeroed in on was the amount of money people spent of their income on food. And in Canada, the UK, and the US, it's between 7 and 9%. It kind of fluctuates. And in other countries like Spain, Italy, France, Portugal, I was upward in the 15 to 18% range. And then I correlated that to uh, some of the health impacts. So in Canada, the US, and the UK, we have the highest degrees of obesity, diabetes, and heart issues, and you don't have those same issues in Italy, France, Spain, Portugal, Greece, etc. And I don't think that it's a coincidence. I really believe that people who put more into the quality of the foods. And yes, it costs a little bit more because you're eating more fruits and vegetables and lean meats, etc. But it's healthier for you, and that was something that was really clear when you see the correlation.
And I also want to come back to this concept of convenience because I'm seeing this as such a driver that everybody wants everything within arm's reach of desire, regardless of waste and packaging and everything else that goes with it. And in food, we're seeing it with delivery, meal kits, meals prepared in the store, meals on the go, delivery apps. Um, how does grocery retailers need to evolve to still get their fair share so that people realize there's magistry to food as opposed to just the magic of summon it and I can eat it.
Yeah, I'd say for grocery retailers, it's figuring out who your target consumer is. At Longo's, our target consumer, we call them everyday food explorers, and those are families that have busy lives, like a lot of people do. Have kids, they like to cook, but maybe don't have time to cook 21 meals a week. So maybe they'll cook 3 or 4 dinners and maybe 2 or 3 lunches. But quality and convenience is key for those consumers. So I mean, I think that's how grocery retailers have to continue to gain share, to consolidate the spend of those consumers by meeting those needs for sure.
And you mentioned talking to food manufacturers in terms of putting more quality in the foods. What else will they need to do to evolve? Because as I look at grocery, I see their territory shrinking and more being opened up to sort of entrepreneurs and fresh. So, what does a food manufacturer have to do to kind of pay attention to the consumer and where they're on the move?
Yeah, I think they need to focus on their core and stop trying to be all things to all people, and continuing to just expand the number of SKUs that they offer just to gain shelf space, or thinking they're going to get a little bit more. And I think again, COVID has taught all of us that you don't need all that assortment. It confuses the consumer. It doesn't add value to the consumer, and they need to rethink. My view, anyways. What is their core, and focus on that. Focus on in stock. Focus on better quality. I also think they need to focus on creating sustainable packaging, creating more nutritious products for consumers. So how do you take the current product you have and make it more nutritious and more natural in a more sustainable package?
And as you know, I did a series on small business matters. I've got massive heart for entrepreneurs, and in Canada, I covered a couple that were, Christy Knowles with Mother Raw, Sheena Russell with Made with Local, Paul Cornac Ruvit with St. Francis Herbs. Is there a role for entrepreneurs in a sector that traditionally has been dominated by these food giants?
Oh, absolutely. I think entrepreneurs are really the lifeblood of innovation, and they're the ones that actually come up with new categories, or really force some of the big giants to change their ways when they start losing market share to some of them. And you can see that some of them have very different ways to approach market. Some is very unique, say, flavors, and some will just create more nutritious products, and some will focus on local. And I think just to talk a little bit about local, I think Made in Canada is such a great brand, and I'm still shocked that not enough of the big manufacturers are using that as a way to build market share here in Canada. I know we had the Heinz controversy a number of years ago, and of course Heinz is coming back now to make their catch up in Canada again. But Made in Canada is a great brand, and it really it really evokes quality and nutrition for in the world.
I couldn't agree more that what it signals to not only the local consumer here, but around the world is when people imagine Canada, they see a lot of fresh air and fresh water and fresh land to grow. And I think that's going to become increasingly important. Let's talk a little bit more about Canada. What do we need to do to make agriculture one of the priorities of our economy going forward? Growing forward, I guess, is a great
Yeah.
play on words.
Yeah, no, I think we need a long-term plan on how we're going to take on various categories. Again, you can't be all things to all people, so investing in R&D is going to be critical. And a good example of that is the Vineland Research and Innovation Center that we have, right here in Niagara on the Lake, where they're working on various types of floral and food, particularly vegetable products, and a lot fruit as well. I mean, they worked on pears and apples, etc. But we need to have a coordinated strategy that's not going to be based on an election cycle, but based on 20 years. And how do we which are the categories that we're going to go after? So in the West, we're going after pulses, for example, lentils, chickpeas, beans, etc. Those are nutrient dense foods, great proteins. So I think we need to have a more thought out plan for the long term, that we can actually build on our on the great agriculture sector that we already have.
So my final question, Anthony, I remember as a kid, I used to roll my eyes at my parents and trying to give me lessons in life, but I smile now as I get older, realizing a lot of those lessons did stick and hopefully have passed on to my children. What lessons did you learn as a young child that you carry today that we could share with all the listeners?
Yeah, I think for me it comes back to the values. When we talk about our values at work, they're the same. It's honesty, trustworthiness, respecting others. Being humble is a big one for our family. It's something that my dad always taught me, and being clear on what's important to you. And for us, family and friends. was critical. I mean, that was a key lesson. And then the last thing I'd say is, life is not a sprint, right? Life's a marathon, and you learn lessons every day. So, as another thing my dad always said is, you have one mouth and two ears, so listen twice as much as you talk. So you can always pick up great tidbits of wisdom from anyone around you.
And so, Anthony Longo, as I say goodbye to you, I just want to tell you that I've known you personally for many, many years. You're held in the highest regard in this industry, and I think it's because the values you talk about aren't words on some plaque in some mahogany-lined office, but words you live every day by. So I really appreciate you being part of Chatter That Matters.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. I really appreciate you asking me to join you. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to Chatter That Matters. Download Chatter That Matters wherever you get your podcast, or follow me at chatterthatmatters.ca or on Twitter at @TonyChapman. Let's chat soon.